Hello everybody, this is attempt 2 at this basic English knitting style video because I showed you how to purl wrong last time, which is not ideal really, but never mind, we're going to address it correctly in this video. So when you knit, what you need to do is conquer the 2 stitches of knitting, which is the knit stitch and the purl stitch. And once you've conquered those, you can pretty much knit anything that you like. It's just the 2 stitches get modified slightly to create different patterns. So that's always good to know. In fact, when I learnt, my friend said, right, so you can do the knit, you can do the purl. Here, this is how you do a sock. So I jumped in at the deep end. I wouldn't recommend the first project you do as a sock though. It turned out okay. So there are 2 main sort of styles, as it were, of knitting. You have English knitting, which is the one I'm going to show you in this video, and continental knitting. There are a myriad of others, but those are the main, most commonly used ones. I tend to do a knit stitch that's called flicking, which is a bit of a combination of both of them, and I will do another video to show you how I do that later, because it's faster and that's just what I do. So in this video, to begin with, what I want to do is show you how to cast on, which is the start of any project. And if you're going from a pattern, the pattern will tell you how many stitches you need to cast on. I'm going to show you 2 ways to cast on. There's one which is the more standard one, which is just a little bit slower, and there's long tail cast on as well, which I'll also show you. So when you're starting off, like if you've seen the crochet video, you need to make a little loop. So you do that by crossing one bit of yarn over the other and then pinching that through, pulling it through and creating a loop. And that loop you need to just pop over your needle and do tighten it slightly, but you want it to be loose. An error that is often made when casting on is to cast on too tight, which then makes everything else a little bit more complicated. So tighten up slightly. What we're going to do is, with this cast on, is use 2 needles. Okay, so you need to again hold tension in your right hand for English knitting. I think you just swap it over if you're left-handed. I don't know the answer to left-handed knitting. I've never done it. So how I hold tension, you'll find what works for you, but this is how I do it. I twist that around my little finger. So around like that. And then that one gets pushed up with your index finger. So to cast on, what you need to do is pop your second needle through that loop, so it's coming through at the back, go round the back of the needle, and then you pull that loop through and you slip it on to the needle in your left hand. Okay, so you just keep going until you have the amount of stitches that you want. So you just pop it through and then slip it onto your other needle. So in, round, pull it through, slip it on. In, round with that one, pull it through, slip it off. In, round, pull it through, slip it off. And you just keep going until you have the amount of stitches that you want to use. I'm just going to pull that one off because I want to show you, in my opinion, a better way of casting on. It's faster. Yeah, it's faster. The only issue is that it's called long tail cast on, and the reason that it's long tail cast on is, like the name suggests, you need a long tail, because both of these bits will make up your stitches. So again, you need to make a loop like you did last time. So just twist it over, make a little loop. With long tail cast on, we just use 1 needle. So pop that loop round, tighten it up. Come on, Sarah. So tighten it up And then with long tail cast on, you need to, so you now have 2 bits of yarn coming off this loop. So you need to rest that in your hand and close over with your little 4th and middle finger, and then with your index and your thumb, put it in between those 2 pieces of string and move it out. So in, move it out, and move your needle down. And with this cast on, what you need to do is you need to go under that yarn in front around your thumb, over that one in the back, and bring your thumb over and off. So under, over, thumb round, off, under, over, off, under, over, off, under, over, off. Under, over, off, under, over, off, under, over, off, under, over, off. Have we got enough now? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 15, 12, 13, 14, 15. So you've got your stitches there. Then you can start knitting, and make sure you don't start knitting with that spare tail, which yeah, I have done, and it's annoying. In fact, I did it earlier today, so keep that one out of the way. So with English knitting, English style knitting, neither style is wrong, by the way, it's just different. Continental tends to be faster. So we need to again hold the yarn in our right hand, so like we did with that first cast on, round your thumb and up. There are several different ways of holding tension. This is the way that works for me. You might find that it's too loose for you, but I find when you wrap it around lots and lots of fingers, it gets just too tight, and then your stitches get really tight, and tight knitting is not what you want really. You want it a bit loose and a bit stretchy. Okay, so this is how you start to knit. So you take the needle with no work on, so this is the needle with your work on. You slide that needle from the left side of the stitch through, so you can see there it's coming out the other side and through, and then you let go of the needle in your right hand and then around like that. I've just realised I've got a slightly orange fingernail. That's because I had a tangerine earlier, so apologies for that. So in, slide it in. With this yarn you pull it round the back of the needle, push it through, and then you slide the stitch that's on the left needle off. So in, round, and then you pull that through. In, round the back of the needle, through. And that's it really. It's really basic. It's not at all scary. It's like with anything, if you've not done it before, everything just feels a little bit alien in your hands, but you'll catch onto it very quickly, I promise. So we've knitted a line, and what we're going to do is we're going to purl backwards. So you need to turn your work around. So now the needle that was in your right hand is now in your left hand. So you've switched the needles, and this is your work. And as you can see, now your yarn is in front. When you were doing the knitting, the yarn was at the back of the needle. And now you've twisted it so it's in front. Again, you need to hold tension And when you are purling, you go in from the right side, so not the left like with knitting. You take your yarn, again it goes around the back of the needle, you push it in and you slip that stitch off. So it goes in from the right side, the yarn goes around the back of the needle, you push it back through and you slip that stitch off. So in, around the back of the needle, through and off. Keep going along. Oh, it's a lovely sunny day for once. Well, I say for once, we've had lots of lovely sunny days. It's been awfully wet just when I put all my vegetable seedlings out, and then they got slugged, which I was most displeased about. I was making it going to grow some very interesting looking cucumbers, and now they've been slug dinner. I hate slugs. God. I suppose every creature has a purpose. I've just not figured out what slug's purpose is yet. So in round the back, through and off. Okay. So I think when you're starting out with knitting, sometimes, and you put it away, you go and make a cup of tea and you come back to it, and then you're really confused about whether you should be knitting or purling. There's a really easy way to tell. So this is the side that you have been doing knit stitch on, which is often called the right side. So the knit stitch side is the right side and the purl stitch side is the wrong side. And the way to tell which side you're on is the knit stitches. So each stitch is a little V. Can you see? So this is one knit stitch, that's a second knit stitch. And the way to tell what side you're on is the knit stitches go vertically upwards. Can you see? And then if you turn it round to the purl side, which is often the wrong side, all of the stitches are horizontal. So they're all going, all those little loops. And you don't get V's on this side. You sort of have a little line and they're horizontal. So that's your purl side or your wrong side. And that's your knit side. Purl stitch is basically back to front knit stitch. I don't know if that's more confusing or not. And one thing that I would recommend is, which I will do, not today because I don't want to cast this off today, is making sure that you learn how to cast off, because otherwise, a bit like me, you'll end up with the longest scarf known to man. And I just couldn't stop. I just kept going because I couldn't figure out how to... YouTube didn't exist when I first, very, very first tried knitting back in my youth. And yeah, it got huge. So learn how to cast off. I will do casting off in the future, but I want to use this one to show people how to do continental and also how to do flicking. Anyway, I hope that was useful. If it wasn't useful, then let me know in a constructive and pleasant way, please. None of your nasty, mean comments for me. I'll cry. And I will see if I can improve and stop rambling quite as much as I do at the moment. Okay, happy knitting.